scholarship, cemetery, and library funds that are trust funds. That's money that is donated by individuals for specific funds. Then the town also has capital reserve funds, which come from warrant money, town money. So in 2019, we had the funds invested with Charles Schwab and managed by Cap Trust. And part of the responsibility is to provide an MS9 and MS10 to the state. And
State forms.
state
Right.
forms, I've attached the copies for you. So Cap Trust provided the information form in 2019. In 2020, they said, we're not doing that for you anymore. You guys have to do it. So I took a stab of it, submitted the MS9 for 2020 to the state after many hours following their same format. It was approved, accepted by the state. And I just, the MS10, which is the investments and a record of what individual funds they're invested in, I couldn't figure that out for the life of me. Got on the phone with Tom Donovan. Do you know who he is?
Department of Justice.
He's the Department of Justice and the director of the trustees for the state.
Okay. And
I explained, and I actually got into a big argument with him, and he said, basically, if your financial firm isn't gonna provide you with this, you need to find one that does. And this was back in February. So I started looking around. They provided a list of financial firms that do this. I started calling them. Several of them had stopped doing it. Several of them were out of state, and I said, if they're out of state, they're not gonna know what's going on. So I looked at 3.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Just missed a little bit of detail. What was Charles Schwab doing in 2019? What did they do when they stopped doing it? Did they give you
Charles
information?
Schwab held the money, and it was managed by this firm called Cap Trust, and before that, it was managed by, Wayland Capital several years ago, and Wayland Capital got bought by Boston Advisors, and then Boston Advisors got bought by Cap
There's a lot
Trust.
of activity.
And Cap Trust said, we don't wanna deal
So
with
my
this.
question though was, I didn't state it, was they were doing something in 2019 that they stopped doing in 2020, and I missed.
Providing the information
The
for you to
information.
fill out the MS9 and MS10.
Okay, so they gave you the information and you filled out the MS.
Well, the way so in 2019, the state opened a portal and it told us we had to submit it online. And they had a format to do it in. And so basically it was taking an Excel spreadsheet and changing it to a CSV report and submitting that. So they gave me that report.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, I need to provide these reports. I don't know how to do them. I need to find
So
someone
they
that
stopped
does.
giving you the report that you could change from Excel to CSV.
Right, right.
Okay, thanks.
So as I looked around, I looked at 3 different, TD Bank is where our money is now for the capital reserve fund. I looked at 3 bearings, and I looked at this company called Charter Trust, and talked to all of them. I was particularly impressed with 3 bearings because they have provided online training programs for any of the trustees in the state. And they've been very involved with that, and they've been very involved with helping the state improve their portal and things like that. So in April of this year, we went ahead and signed a contract with 3 bearings to move the trust funds from Charles Schwab and Cap Trust to Three Bearings, who manages them, and moving them into Fidelity Investments. So since June through beginning of September, that money's been moved over. So, and one of the things they are providing, they went back and did the MS9 for year 2020, even though, and the MS10. They have done an incredible amount of work. I'm very comfortable with their knowledge. They're available, the emails going back and forth has been incredible, the phone calls, they're available to talk to, or any questions. They have a very good rapport with Tom Donovan at the state. They ask him questions they need answered, and he gets back to them pretty quick. So, that's kind of the history where I'm at.
So did they create the spreadsheet?
So they created the MS9 and actually submitted it online. It was not it was different than what I had created. So the state turned it back and took theirs and through the portal and accepted it. Now I just wanna say, Three Bearings is telling me the MS9 and MS10 has been off a bit, the way it's been presented at least, since about 2012. So, they got it submitted, it's been approved by the state. Mine had been approved, even though it was wrong, the state had approved it. So, it's kind of like I was happy when I knew everything was simple and easy. Well, it's not quite so simple and easy. One of the things is, as I said to you, I thought there was one library fund, one scholarship fund, and one cemetery fund. Well, if you look at the MS9, which I think is your first set of numbers here. Oh, you can look at this one.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like this.
Should be,
Keep going.
may not have gotten in the same order.
He's got him in there, he's just gonna get them.
What's on the top of it? Is it the MS9 that we're looking at?
Yep,
Okay, so the top left, it'll say MS9.
there you go.
Right there, yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you,
there's,
thank you.
as you see, there's actually a few funds. And there was, federal or state mandate that said those funds should have been actually combined several years ago, and they never were.
Which
the other-
ones? I'm sorry.
Under the library fund. So,
They should have all been combined into one library.
well, actually kept under two. See how the first three say best use and the fourth one says maintenance?
Right,
So, in the future, these will be combined, and there'll be two funds, one best use and one maintenance.
okay.
If you look down under scholarship, they go, wait a minute, what's this one about books? What's this one about best use? So, the research that was done by Three Bearings indicates that several of these funds shouldn't have been under scholarship, they should have been up in the library funds.
Okay,
So that's getting managed and taken care of. All right, so I just want you to, I'm gonna come back to that in a bit. So that's the MS9 that they provided and the MS10 for 2020. And the state has accepted that we send that in.
and finish this. Keep going.
The next thing I wanna I'm trying to use this period to educate you guys, because I don't know how much you know about this, I apologize if you know. If you don't,
You have this in the.
Yes,
We're
yes.
on the second here now,
so
right?
that's,
We're on the section
Yep.
here?
that's your capital reserve funds, that's the warrants that have been written.
Keep going.
On the left is the date it was created, and this is the amount. So, and you'll notice underneath, there's three additional funds, expendable trust funds versus capital reserve funds. They're basically all capital reserve funds, it's just the way they were written
Mhm.
so that they can be combined, but their titles are slightly different, so if that helps you. So if you keep going after that, one of the things Three Barons did, and this is for your information, is they provided this fund snapshot for every one of the funds that the town has.
That's good.
So, it gives you whether, now, one of the things you'll notice is your capital page, starts on page 46. All the funds before page 46 are trust funds. And the moment, I didn't give this to you is because at the moment, because some of the money was still in Charles Schwab and some is in Fidelity, there's a page for both, two pages for each of those funds. So it's this thick and it's a little complicated, so we're gonna leave that alone. So you're looking, the first one you have is, and I'm not gonna go through all these, I just wanna show you what's on. Ambulance and major medical equipment. And it gives you, it's a capital reserve fund, the year it was created, 1998, and it's fund market value now, so there's $204,000, and it shows the interest that it was earning in it. Under the comments is the warrant that created it for you, so you have that for all of the funds. One of the things you might, or we might consider somebody, either Martha or I or someone, go back to this list and say, does the fire department really know that they have all those funds available to them because some of them were created a couple of years ago? Do they still want the money there, or do they want to have it changed to something else? That's a big undertaking to do, but it's something to take into consideration.
Probably a good task to give to the Board of Fire Engineers.
I do have to say, they are very up to speed on
They are.
all of their
Okay, and
accounts.
the police department and everything,
Yes.
okay, because I didn't know that, so there's certainly a lot of funds. I mean, there's a Mott Cove Pond fund for $50 in it. There, I guess the money has to be moved back into the general fund,
That's one pound, right?
not pond.
I'm looking at it right now, yeah.
Yep. So that's something that can be looked into. So what brings me here specifically for you today is, right now, that we have moved the trust funds into Three Barons and Fidelity, so they're investing. The capital reserve funds are sitting at TD Bank in a savings account. They're earning 0.5%. But there's no fee, it's 100%, it's not 100% secure because banks only insure it up to a certain point, right?
No, they won't. If you go to the bank, you can ask them, you know, I've done this.
Okay,
I had that problem, and I went to the bank and I says, I wanna put $1 million in your bank, and I want you to give me a letter that says that you're gonna cover that.
Right.
And they will,
okay,
yeah.
They will, we just confirmed that with Keith Pike
okay.
and
They
TD
will
Bank,
do that.
that it's
Okay.
all secured funds.
It
Oh,
is
yeah.
also-
If you-
Yes.
you-
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
If you're gonna leave it 100,000,
Yep.
or whatever it is now, you gotta do it for the whole thing, you gotta secure it.
okay. So it's my understanding as the trustees manage this, invest the money prudently, and are responsible for, making deposits and withdrawals from these funds. And I wanted to get a feeling how you guys feel about this money. The trust fund money, I'm comfortable with it, it's been invested already in investments. But the warrant article, capital reserve funds, I kind of feel like they're more your money, the town's money, and what's your comfort level in whether they get invested or not. So Three Barons has provided a updated proposal in it,
So
which
that,
you have a copy of. It's after all the snapshots,
Right here,
so keep
yeah.
going to,
Keep going back.
there it is.
yeah,
You got it.
All right, so,
They made some recommendations?
they make recommendations in that about 15%, 15% of what they invest in is large cap US stocks, with the remainder in short-term US Treasury and investment grade corporate bonds. Now, as investors, it could be stated, we want them all in US Treasury. I mean, this is a recommendation, it's not set that way. Their returns, which I gave you, all right, if you go back, I guess, to this first page, the first presentation I gave you. This one, the second page of this items for discussion.
Says capital reserve funds?
I think it's the first,
The first
The
set
first
of
item in the
papers
booklet.
that I gave
Right,
you.
that's the
Yeah, right
right
here.
one.
Okay, on the
This one right
second
here.
page.
First page,
page,
that's right
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
And then the
Okay.
second page of that report,
Next
right
page.
under the chart.
The management, so it shows you a chart, the management fee is $0 for where the money is now.
Right,
If TD Bank does have an option of investing with BNY Mellon, an investment firm, and if it were invested with that, they would charge 1.1%. The return on investment is based on where it is right now, 0.5%. They will not provide the worksheet. They would just provide a worksheet, they won't file the MS9 and MS10 for us.
they did, when we met with Keith Pike, he said that, they'll provide a summary sheet with all the information.
Yeah,
And
which
yes,
they
you're
have
right.
continued to do.
Right, and they won't do it because of liability reasons. That's why they won't do it. So, you know what, I don't know if you switch over, is there that concern of someone else uploading it, you know, doing all the entry and uploading it to
Well-
DRA and so forth?
So
rather
what
than
happened
doing
this time
in-house?
was 3 bearings uploaded it,
Mhm.
gave me what they had uploaded, I could see it on the portal, and then I had to sign that I agreed with it.
I see, okay.
So that would have to happen.
So do they have their own login to do it, or
They do, and so part of, 3 bearings does this for 33 other towns
right,
in
it
the
does,
state.
yeah, I see that, yeah.
They have 2 women that this is all they work on, is this, doing all this stuff, creating the MS9, they have the software that does it.
That makes sense to me, then that's the way I do it.
Right,
Is
so
that your recommendation?
my recommendation, I am thrilled with 3 bearings for the trust fund.
Okay,
Understand both sides of keep it at TD Bank or keep it or move it. TD Bank, it's making 0.5%, and we're talking about,
1.8 mil, something
yeah,
like that.
$1.8 million. Inflation right now is at least 5%, so you're actually losing money.
right.
And I know it's emotional. I mean, we took money out of the stock market last year when things were scary. And so I see both sides of this, but I have 100% confidence in 3 bearings, the way they're operating, the way they're doing things.
How long have they been around, just curious, do you know?
I don't know. I
And they-
know this Linda Wakefield that I've been dealing with has been with them for 7 years. I think they have in this more information about it in their proposal. I hear we talk about their backgrounds here. So they, the second page it talks about they have 290 million of assets under management, 33 New Hampshire municipalities, 85 million in municipal trust funds and capital reserve funds.
So you're happy the way they handle you and they answer your questions? And
Yes.
You like the way they did it, the 09 and the 10 reports?
Did I like the way they did this?
those reports that you asked
Yes,
for.
yes,
And they look like they're explained well, the information sheet in the back,
yes.
you know, I thought that was, very informative. What are you recommending to us? Do you want us to, move over to them? Save the million, whatever, what we're losing a year? I mean, I'm conservative, I like that kind of idea right away, but I just wanna make sure you're comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable with it.
Mhm.
I know the two other, trustee members are comfortable with it.
Okay.
But I'm not comfortable that if you guys go, no way, no way, no way, I'm not doing that. I hate that idea, I would not do it, because I feel like we need to work on this together.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Thank you.
so the other money that's out there is the sewer enterprise fund.
Right.
I've made them aware that this is a possibility. The next step I needed to do with them was send them a copy of this investment policy.
Yeah.
So Dennis Miser had said to me back in March or so, we talked about moving it and we're not interested. But this was before I knew as much as I know now.
Dennis Messier.
Yeah.
Got it,
Yeah.
got it, okay.
He's from the old school, you don't like to change your horses too much.
Pardon?
He's from the old school, you don't like to change your horse too much.
Right, and change is hard for everybody.
Oh, absolutely, but
So-
it's
and
necessary
that's-
sometimes.
Right, so that's where I am on that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure,
So under return on investments, under three bearings, it says first year, 4.42%.
so what, that's like if you just looked at 1 year, it was 4.42. If you look back 3 years, it was 5.42. If you look back 5 years, it was 4.15, and that's on page 11 of their,
So can I just ask my
Sure.
question? So then if you look at the statement under the chart, it says, three bearings, capital reserve funds are invested approximately 15% in large cap US stocks, with remainder invested in short-term US Treasury and investment grade corporate bonds. So is that the strategy that then translates into the 4.42% and,
yes.
okay,
Yes.
so, got it, just double checking,
Okay.
thank you.
I believe that's a yes to that.
How much money are we talking about?
Well, let's go back to that page that lists your funds.
1.8 million.
One point,
So if you take out the,
store is 1.3, the capital reserve
Right.
funds are 1.8, and the trust funds is.
well, the trust funds are not included in here.
Right, just these,
So it's the funds that are the warrant,
there you
capital
go.
reserve funds is a
3
million.
million.
Yeah, 3.1, yeah, it's 3 million, yeah.
And we're gonna save at least one million in expenses out of it, if we move the money.
If we move
So-
the money, everything that's in TD will be in here.
Yes. So one of the things that has to get solved is there is a fee, 0.5% for the first, if you go to the page, first 1.35% for the next 3 million. At Cap Trust, we were paying 1%, so we've halved our monthly fee for the trust at least. As I understand it, and I need to research it more, is if we agree and the money's moved there, the fees we have to either, have a warrant saying that the fees can come out of the proceeds earned from the funds, or they can be paid out of operating expense from the town. Just to give you an idea, so for the first quarter of, this year, it was $1,081 for the trust funds, and the trust funds were, sorry, 800,000.
Yeah.
So maybe we're talking 2,500 for fees a quarter. If all this money was moved.
And then, on that, it just matters how we wanna look at it and display it, like, is there an advantage either way, how it gets paid, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't think
But-
so.
I don't, that's something I need to learn more about as
Yeah.
well, and,
At first blush, what I like about having it be in the town budget is town meeting gets to see it and approve it. You know, the budget committee is involved and sees these funds, and as time goes on, they're not lost.
Transparent. That's
Transparency.
the word you wanna use,
Right.
right?
Just something to think about.
Now, if we needed money, we transferred it all out, like we needed $1 million 3 years ago, whatever. And we had to go borrow, which we did, well, we didn't borrow from an institution, we borrowed it in-house. Does this shut us off with TD, do you know, Sue? If we
We can
needed,
still borrow money, there's not gonna be a problem with that.
okay,
We might have a little higher
Right.
percentage.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
You know, so it's a matter of thinking about our relationship with TD Bank and moving forward.
Right.
You know,
been a
obviously
good-
we're a
you've been a
good
good neighbor.
customer and we work well together,
Yeah.
so. But you could still borrow, it just might be a higher.
and I'm
Slightly
comfortable
higher,
with
not-
TD Bank as well, I just look at that 0.5% and
Yeah.
go,
Right.
The
that
potential-
really hurts.
Yeah.
But, you know, the warrant money is passed, not with the expectation it's gonna make money, but there is an expectation it's gonna be there to be spent
When needed,
when needed.
correct.
But if you need to come back to at the town meeting and say, well, yeah, because of inflation, we already have this much money, but we're gonna have to ask you for this much more because of inflation, the expenses that have gone up, then that's another
So I need a
consideration.
clarification if I may. If we move the funds over to this other entity you talked about, that's gonna cost us X amount of money a year.
Yes,
Right now, it's costing us X amount of money now,
0.
0. Okay, so that's the unbenefit part of that one.
That's that part of it, but moving it and making 5%, 4% to 5%.
Which is gonna offset the cost of the,
Yeah.
quarterly cost is what I'm looking at. I'm trying to find out how to do that in my
Yeah.
head, so
Yeah,
I can understand where you're coming from here.
yeah, so it's a 0.5% cost
Mm-hmm.
versus between 4 and 5%.
We're looking back at the last
So we're
5
in the
years,
4%,
we're looking
yeah.
back at the last 5 years on
Right.
interest.
Right,
And the economy's been, the stock market, everything's been great the last 5 years. If you look at it today, we just went down 800 points.
I mean, it's more than-
Today, you say, wait a minute, are we, I mean, yeah,
Is it
I'm
over?
not a financier, believe me.
over?
but I-
No, I'm
yeah,
not, I agree, and I'm not either, and so that's why I didn't feel comfortable that the trustees made this decision alone.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate that part of it.
I
And I
mean,
wouldn't want that responsibility myself, without,
Can I make a suggestion? This is, we got this today.
Yep,
Can we read it and get back to you, Jen? I would feel safer just
Absolutely.
reviewing this.
for sure, for
and sitting
sure.
down. I don't wanna, it looks great, and I really appreciate you putting a lot of time and energy into this.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that.
Okay, let me, just a couple comments, I'd be glad to. David Mays, who's the owner of Three Bearings, would be glad to answer any questions you have,
okay?
either directly to him or through me. He has said he is willing to come in October 4th to answer questions at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, if you were interested in
I
that.
think that's a little premature
Okay.
until we read it.
But between now and then, yes,
Yeah.
that's a, yes.
And
So
then we
if
can-
you
and then we can
got,
build a consensus among
Yep.
ourselves here with all the input.
and on the bottom of that 3 pages beginning, I have my email and phone number on the last sheet, so, please feel free. What I would be curious about is if you
Oh, okay.
don't recommend, if you we tend not to recommend it. What's your major concern? Oh, so that I,
So I had two questions, just two,
Yep.
as long as you asked them. One was, the investment strategy, as you talked about. The stock market went down.
Right.
So they recommended the growth, maintaining inflation, kind of what's the strategy for the funds?
okay, that is in
That's
this,
somewhere.
is in there.
So that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
And then the second question was just, access to the funds. So for the capital reserve funds, if we decide to make a capital purchase and we're ready to go, what's the process?
they have given me paperwork, so if I need a withdraw, I fill out this paperwork and give it to them. They, if it's a large amount of money, they're not, the money's not, a large amount of the fund's not sitting in cash, so they would need to sell
Keep
some.
the heat on.
Right.
So, we've asked, they've asked me, if you know of anything coming forward, please let us know, and we'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, so that would be great if we just knew what kind of
Right.
timeline it would be,
Right.
just so we make sure that we can sync up with.
Yeah, so at the end of this year, so this is actually my last comment here. Last year, funds were moved the very last day of the year. It was ridiculous and crazy and very stressful.
We don't wanna do that.
It needs to be done the beginning of December. And that, if I know the amount that moves into the operating fund and out of the operating fund into the capital reserve funds, that,
By
you know,
December
we need
1st.
it by the 15th at the very latest.
I think we do recognize that that was very stressful and would
Yeah.
certainly try to make sure that didn't happen
But
again.
it's got to happen sooner now with the money in the stock market. So the other part, this money could not be moved until a warrant, I believe, and I double checked this, a warrant was written that says the money's gonna come out of the, proceeds of the operating budget, but maybe it's different if it comes out of operating budget, maybe it can be moved right away, so we're still not talking potentially of moving this till next year.
Right.
And maybe it would make sense not to move anything until January anyways, because we're still learning all the ins and outs of all this. So there's a lot here to go through. I understand and I appreciate that you wanna take the time and learn it
Yeah,
more.
I think we should.
There's a couple other items that I just need to let you guys be aware of. The library committee, there's a library fund and there's a, that, where did I have this one? Okay, so that's gonna get, I already talked to you about that in the MS9, those funds are gonna get put together.
Right, if you account,
Consolidate
Yeah.
too.
right, so if you account,
All right,
that's correct.
There's a scholarship fund, and the original, so this scholarship fund is really quite old. Let me get to it.
1909, Benjamin Webster Trust Fund. That's the one you're talking about? On page one of your 7-page
Yes,
spreadsheet, MS9.
You know who Benjamin Webster was?
Ooh,
You should know, you was
He built
roommate.
a lot of houses in Portsmouth and
Yeah.
Fernwood Funeral
Okay,
Parlor
well, so
was his
what's
home. He built
part
it
of-
as his home.
Yes.
And all the houses in that area, he built. He's probably one of the first people who built houses and sold them and kept them and rented them like that in late 1800s, early 1900s.
You know how I knew you right?
wow.
When I appraised
Because I
that,
nothing wrong.
no, when I appraised that building, when he transferred ownership as a death in the family, that building was built, at that point you could see Mount Washington from there.
It's a big
It's interesting.
cupola on the top of it.
Yes, I
You
didn't
guys,
know
you guys
about
are
that.
talking like you were there. Are you that old?
I lived a block from it.
They went to school with him. They're schoolies. You guys are schoolies.
all right, back to it's the Newington Family Scholarship Fund that I'm
Yeah, I
looking
see
at.
it's
It
1870,
started in 1970.
right.
Okay, so a lot of time and energy's been looking into documentation for this.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the documentation says that the selection committee to hand out the scholarships is supposed to include a member of the school board, a member of the board of selectmen, and the library trustees. You guys they haven't been doing
Not
that
my
way for a
5.5
long
years.
time.
Not my 5.5 years.
Right, so I'm working with the school board to figure out what their procedure is, whether there needs to be a meeting with 3 people that say, no, the school board's taking us over or something. That's gotta get solved. And the only reason I'm telling you this is because
Housekeeping.
it's housekeeping. All right, on the first page of the MS9, there's the H. Newton Church Fund. That was established in 1927. It has a balance of 1785. Apparently, it was created to provide scholarships to teach preaching.
What?
Preaching.
Preacher.
Oh, preaching.
Being a
Oh.
minister.
Well, you ought to be good for that, Mr. Chairman.
Obviously, that is not separation of church and state.
Absolutely
So-
not.
Tom Donovan at the state has said that, and they had another town have a similar situation, the fund needs to be dissolved and the money given to the church. And so he has recommended, let's see, what do I have? The DOJ has determined that this is an illegal trust and has provided guidance to us for closing the account. It will need town council to draft a plea. I have the documentation to do that. Then there's the cemetery. So the town has 2 capital reserve funds for the cemetery. We just created one last year for $4,000 to create a sanatorium.
Celebrarium
Right over there.
or whatever, yeah.
Right,
Cobble
okay,
Place to hold ashes.
yes.
Run an
So,
ash.
Place we don't wanna visit soon.
correct. This is a kind of a whole kerfuffle. And it's gonna take a lot of work to figure this all out. One of the things that I'm not sure has happened is there is also a trust fund for maintenance of the cemetery. Money has not moved out of that fund, the trust fund, to help cover the cost of operation of the cemetery in several years.
Okay,
And it probably should be.
I would think so.
Okay, so that needs to work out, and part of that, so that fund, the cemetery, it's a trust fund, the state's recommending that it become a capital reserve fund and be moved into
Accordingly.
the town. It would require a town meeting vote to ratify past practice and going forward with a warrant making this a 31:19-A fund in conjunction with RSA 289:2-A. This is all 3 bearings giving me, and Tom Donovan, I don't know anything what this means.
How much money is in there? I don't know what it's total, I was just.
It's,
We
okay,
did fine.
it's almost $100,000.
What's the 805,000?
In the trust funds, it's 805, right?
That's the total.
Are you looking at that?
That's the,
MS9?
yeah,
Yeah.
the accumulation of all of the individual cemetery funds,
What page you want, Bob?
4 of 7 on the MS9.
Cemetery
Oh,
perpetual
the,
fund.
805, you think, we talk about that?
On the MS9.
805 is all the trust
All the
funds.
trust.
Above it is the line 81,870 cemetery perpetual funds.
Right. Take that
So-
out.
There's a difference between the total principal and income and the market value and the market value. Do you need that explained? You're good with that? Okay.
For today.
What?
For today.
Because I needed an explanation. You need to add that 81, which is the perpetual care, and we won't even go into all that,
Right.
to the 99,000 under the cemetery on the first page of the MS9.
Okay.
Um,
When we read it, we'll digest that when we.
Okay,
Thank you,
So
Jim.
that's where I'm at. I'm going to get to Martha all of the emails that give the emails between Linda Wakefield of Three Bearings and Tom Donovan and back to her and to me that explains what needs to be done, that the town needs to be done about these items.
Okay,
Great. Thank you for all the work. That's
that's a lot of
a
work.
lot of work.
It's been a lot of work.
Yeah.
And Three Bearings has done a large chunk of this.
Yeah.
Which is something that's gonna be an asset for you and for anybody else that's gonna
And
be
for the
behind you.
future, and
Yeah.
for the future.
That's what I'm concerned about, because we all gonna eventually not be here, so what do we do to bring it on for the person coming up behind us?
Frank, you'll never go away, so don't worry about it.
Well, that's why I think these snapshots that say, here's the warrant,
Yeah,
this is what the warrant states.
right, it's an eye opener.
Linda has said to me, you wanna make sure you get documentation from you guys. In the past, I've only gotten a letter that says, move this amount of money from this fund to that fund, move this
Right.
money. And I
Right.
need, she said,
Better
get the
documentation.
documentation
Absolutely, I
behind
agree,
that.
I agree with you.
Um,
But let us look this over and see what we
Okay.
can figure out.
I'm happy
yeah.
to come back, I'm happy
Thank
to
you.
answer emails.
Absolutely.
I know this isn't gonna get resolved, maybe not even this year, but if we need things on warrants written, we need to work on those, I guess.
You've taken us out of the dark anyway. You shine a lot of light on what is here, so thank you.
Yeah, no, I wondered, like, what do you guys even know about the trust funds and stuff? Cause I knew this much before, now I'd say maybe know this much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you for all your time.
you're welcome. It was nice meeting everybody.
Thank you, yeah, it's a pleasure. Now we're going to cybersecurity.
Great. The board
Thank
has
you,
your-
ladies.
How do you
Appreciate
do
you
it?
staying
Oh,
out.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
That
was
makes up
worried
for being
about-
late this morning.
Are you on board with the movie?
Thanks so much.
There's so many little angles to this.
How you doing? I couldn't do it.
like that.
I've been working on this
I believe it.
2 weeks just to prepare for this, my notes. But
Right, well, I just want to make sure that the paperwork
love
is easy
those
for everybody to
things. And I
follow.
called her like 3 different times with questions as I was preparing
Okay,
this.
that
And
was
they're
my
like,
question,
no,
I
no,
want to make sure that
yeah,
we
you
do
know,
this.
we need to call Kendall tomorrow.
Yeah.
Good.
Just not, this way, it's just not you and just not us, but all of us together to understand and pass it on to the coming people.
Do you need some help carrying that?
No, that's,
Thank you. Again,
Thank
thank you,
you.
nice to meet you.
Yeah.
nice to meet you too.
Thank
Got all the
goodness.
money in the box?
Thanks for coming again.
Yes.
You're
welcome.
Is that how money you're looking at here?
No, there's all the monthly statements as well.
Oh.
If you have specific questions,
We
there's,
have to get you a little dolly to look at all that stuff.
oh, I have 2 more boxes of this for the trust at home.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
So cybersecurity, the board has in their packet a spreadsheet of the 8 proposals that we received, which was a very healthy response. Paul DeShane and I met with the 2 applicants outlined in green, but we still have questions.
Okay.
We want to pursue looking at some other applicants and do not have a recommendation at this time.
Okay.
These are each very in-depth, they're sitting on the table if you want to read through them. But we
Martha,
want to make.
one of the emails you sent us, I believe it was within the last day or two, talked about the state money and when I read what was yellow highlighted, it said some of that, I guess it was, fallout money from the federal government could
Yeah.
be spent on this.
I haven't had much yet.
Is that true?
Right.
So whatever we decide to do, and we've been talking about that for a while, that, you know, whatever we get or got from the feds, we need to spend it on something appropriate. So,
Exactly.
so I think, you know, whichever one of these proposals we pick, we use that federal money to pay.
I agree with it.
And the other thing you had mentioned, Bob, a few months back anyway, was about the system, the air handling
Yeah,
systems
yeah.
for the different
Yeah.
buildings. And
Now,
Kelly's
The
working.
school supposedly was handling themselves, right?
Yes.
Right,
So we were only talking about police, fire, this building for sure, and then
The library did their own,
the library digging around.
I think,
Right.
And then the highway shed.
yeah.
And you said, I think you had told me that Kevin did some research on that?
right. And Bob Hart actually had given him a quote for that work to
Well,
be
we know
done.
that's gonna be high then.
Yeah.
So I will,
Well, we'll look
I'll
at this
check
quote
on
and
the
get
other
another.
quotes
All right, good.
and get back to the board. And we'll put this on a future agenda, but just so you know what's going on with it. Thank
But I
you.
think between the cybersecurity and the air handling systems, we could probably, cover those federal funds. I think that, and that would be a good expenditure
Absolutely.
of those.
Right.
I think everybody in town appreciated too, knowing what we did with the funds and using for the benefit of the town.
Right.
Okay.
We could always buy some clean air for the playground too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Chief.
The next item is your budget. That is in your packets for your review. On October 4, Cheryl and I will be coming in with a full report of the third quarter
Okay.
to talk to you about it, but we wanted to get the budget to you now.
Good, thank you.
I looked at, perused it over the weekend a little bit. Some look good, some things a little expensive, that's typical.
Yes.
Nothing jumped out at me too bad. They were in good ones so far.
Next item is the capital improvements plan. John Krebs has sent out a letter on behalf of the planning board, which you have outlining the capital item is $75,000. I would plan to fill out these forms using the board's major roads capital improvement plan and give the planning board that plan as well as the highway capital improvement plan of all of the vehicles that are in excess of 75,000. And the other item that the board should speak about is buildings. So we have two buildings that are in need of work, one of course being the fire department. And I need some direction on how you would like the form to be filled out for that building.
Bob, you had some thought on that.
Yeah, I think we can nickel and dime that building to death, but, I think we really need to start a capital improvement fund for that building, either start one or use one. I mean, that was great news hearing from, I forgot her name before she walked
Jennifer.
out, but Jennifer, but there's enough, fire capital improvements. Do we just need to start putting money into those, to one of those, and designate it specifically for the building? I think, I would be, dependent on, what our tax rate winds up this year being, in the vicinity of, 3, 4, 500,000, just so that, number one, the fire department knows we're serious about fixing their buildings. But number two, they get the message that this is not, we're not fixing it this year. We're all looking for a turnaround in the industrial area, but, I can't see us putting $1 million in a fund like that this year.
Not this time.
We just couldn't do that with all the other things that are
Right.
going on in town. But I do think we need to start, a fund and put some money in it, with the
Right.
amount to be
General
determined.
was just here, there's some funds that are in that account now, maybe could be earmarked to start that project, like you said. And like you said, it's a long-range plan, it's not something we can do overnight. but it's showing that we are concerned with it, and I think that everybody be on board with that. I feel comfortable with doing that.
And if we would have put, you know, 300,000-400,000 in it
To start.
a year, and then, you know, after 3 years, once we had an engineering study done, once we had plans drawn up, once we were ready to pull the trigger on a big building project,
Right.
you know, and I'm certainly, anything that's a safety concern or a health concern, then I wanna fix it right now.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely.
But with this capital improvement plan we do for the building itself,
Yeah.
you know, 3 years down the road, we have 1.2 in that. And then if the bill came in for fixing that building at 2 million, then we'd only need to ask the taxpayers for 800,000.
Right.
So we'd
Well,
be
plan a couple
way
of
ahead
years
of the
down the
game.
line to do that, and then have the funds.
Right,
It makes that's what capital improvement planning is for.
Exactly.
Yep, I agree.
all right.
Thank you, and the other building is the Stone School. Did you have a dollar amount in mind, or how do you wanna proceed with that?
Dennis,
CIP, it's my fault you're talking about all of this, but we have to get it done. With the fire department, I would highly recommend doing a study and looking at what you can do. I mean, I built the fire department at Pease, I designed it, not personally designed, but I worked with the designers to get it all done, and also ran the fire department. There's some things that can be done with this. I don't think we, in the long term, unless things are going really bad inside the walls and the foundations and
Right.
so forth, this building is salvageable by extending the front a little bit and also making it so it's a drive-through in the back bay, to make sure you can stock 2 vehicles there. So a brand-new facility of like $10 to $20 million, I don't think is really needed.
Thank you, Dennis.
A second floor on there would be a bad idea.
right,
All right, so now going on to the Stone School, since you're bringing it up, you asked me for the board to kick it around, and we did. And we looked at it didn't take long because we realized that, like you realized, this is a really bad deal for the town.
terrible.
It's
That Air Force
awful.
agreement is.
If you even so much as disturb the soil on that thing,
I know.
you have
We're in
to.
violation right now, letting Lenny store the
Exactly.
dirt behind it.
Yeah,
So, we still have our thinking caps on,
Okay.
but right now, it's sort of like on the back burner, but we got so much going on, but I think looking at, let's let the planning board and us, and the whole process work about what we wanna do. Maybe you have some ideas, but I don't know what you do with that thing, give it back to the Air Force.
that's, I
We
said
tried
that four,
that. We tried that.
4 years ago when I saw
Yeah.
Did we try
Or,
that?
or ask them for a waiver and say, look, this is beyond repair, and you tied our hands and tell them the truth.
We
and say,
asked them for it, Dennis. We asked them to lift some of the aggravations out of that, and then maybe we could work with it. We haven't heard ditto.
And you won't, because there are bureaucratic machines and it's not their problem
Right.
anymore.
So that's what's sitting up there.
And to be honest with you, unless someone was watching and you tore that building down, I don't think they would give a excuse me, I don't think they would really give a damn,
No, I think you're right, absolutely,
you
yeah.
know? But you can't do it, because all it would take is one phone call to Nadine Miller,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm not really sure. Maybe it's working with them to say, this is the problem that we have. And what I recommend is not trying to save the building, but probably trying to save even the facade of it,
Mhm.
and then doing something with it there. But even with that, it's gonna be costly.
Oh, unbelievable.
It's in the historic district as well, which you got other parameters. If you've been to that meeting this morning, that opens up a whole other Pandora's box.
We came that close to getting sued
I know.
today.
Okay. Anything else, Martha? What do we got here? Oh,
The board has in their packets a draft direct ACH bank payment policy in light of the town of Peterborough
Yep.
recent incident.
I read that.
It's recommended that we have an ACH bank policy in place that requires that any new vendors must be verified by the finance director and approved by the town administrator prior to setup, and to keep any current or,
You need a motion for this, Martha?
yes, please.
So moved.
Seconded.
discussion. All those in favor? Martha, thank you very much for jumping right on top of this.
Exactly.
And protecting us in the
This
town.
is important.
Great.
Very important, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for sending that email out too about the catalytic converter. To me, it fits right into this with the the theft from, it's a good notice for Lenny and that, you know, a lot of people don't drive up that in your town, so.
Yeah.
I think it was Deerfield, somebody had somebody drive up to the highway building, they stored a truck outside.
Took the
They
catalytic.
come in on Monday morning, the catalytic.
They're stealing them everywhere. Yeah.
So, that's a good notice for Lenny and,
Yeah,
even our police department.
yeah, because the cruisers are parked out here all the time,
Well,
all the time, every morning.
There was a cruiser in Burlington, Needham, somewhere down in Mass. Lady
Yeah.
lit one of them on fire and caught another one, so they lost 2 cruisers in one night. We certainly couldn't afford that.
No.
But
Next is,
And one,
Ann Martin,
take it,
resignation.
take it for, regret, but thank you. for all the-
Yeah, she's put many years, I don't know how many years, but a good
Should give
number
her a
of
nice
years.
letter of,
Yeah.
thank you.
Set up a letter of recommendation.
I
for
sure
the
will.
selectmen. Thank you. Ann's a nice lady.
while we're on a resignation, do we wanna wait? Jack O'Reilly sent an email saying he wants to
Yeah.
go on the rec committee.
Yeah, on the committee, he's off the
He-
committee, I mean,
I know, but now he wants back on. He wants back
I
on.
know he
after
was a
going to
classmate of
September
yours in
5th.
high school, right?
Actually, we actually went to the same high school.
I know that.
In my,
Now we know what the problem is, don't we?
but, you know, maybe tomorrow he'll feel differently, but today, do we wanna act on that, or do we wanna give it a week or two and see if he,
I don't have any problem with it.
I don't have any problem.
then I'd make the motion that, Jack O'Reilly, be appointed to the Recreation Committee.
I'll second it.
Discussion, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Vote.
Thank you.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
on cybersecurity.
The only thing I'd like to bring up at this point is it possible that, the current seat, capital improvement plan layout be, available for the selectmen to look at, so we can see it, so I know what they've done in the past and what they may recommend or come forward, so we know what we are, so I can have some continuity with it. Is that possible? Doesn't have to be, could be anywhere in the town, so I can stop and see it.
Do you mean the new one that planning board is working on?
I'd like to see the old one, and then
Old one,
compare.
absolutely.
You know what we talked about, Mike, honestly, we talked about, the capital improvement plan shouldn't be a historic document that somebody just does and then it gets filed away.
Right,
That should
it's a
be
working
well-known.
document.
It should be. It should be well-known to the budget committee, it should be well-known to all the department heads,
Exactly.
so that, you know, when somebody comes forward and says, oh, we want a new radio system, or we want to do this, do that, say, well, why is it not in the capital improvement plan? And it's like, you know, it's a strategic plan for the whole town.
Correct.
Each of the departments do their own individual capital improvement plans that I think get tweaked annually by them. But this is the town's for a 10-year period. So yeah, it should be well publicized and very available, so.
Well, the thing is that when we did that survey for the roads in town, which was an eye-opener for me, and I thought it did an excellent job for the town, so now we know roughly what we're gonna spend each year for the roads. And it's worked out somewhat pretty well, you know, and I think
Mhm.
that part of the CIP kind of put that in my head, and I like that. I've always been a long, not anymore, but I used to be a long-range planner, but I'm playing that far in fast, and people just tell you.
While we're talking about long-range planning and roads,
Yeah,
we just spent a lot of money on Fox Point.
yeah,
I have a firm feeling that Portsmouth Water is gonna come to us. They've already come to us and asked to use part of our field on Fox
Right.
Point
yeah,
while they come across the bay.
right,
They're not coming across the bay, and they didn't just fix the tower over on the north end of Pease, or the
For no
water
reason.
tank tower, for no reason.
Correct.
They're gonna ask us to come right up Fox Point, right past Jack O'Reilly's house, onto Arboretum Drive,
yeah,
with a brand new water line.
right,
So they're gonna wanna dig up Fox Point.
yeah.
My feeling is, if they're giving our residents such a hard time about hooking into the water,
Yeah,
why do we not, in return, give them a hard time about coming up our Fox Point Road? And, you know, they tore up York Coleman Drive, they tore up Airport Road, we see the condition that they leave our roads in, and when they come up Fox Point Road, which is one of our major thoroughfares, it's gonna be a huge
nightmare.
nightmare for the town, and And in conjunction with our engineer who sits on the planning board, we need to stay on top of them along with Eric,
Yeah,
as far as the
absolutely.
conditions that they leave our roads in.
Right.
Also, recoup some of the money they've been charging us for rental of fire hydrants. It's not the original agreement, and Teddy told me not to say anymore, so I shut up. But he said they're gonna have to pay eventually, and I think the time is coming, Mr. Corners, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Not $26,000 a year for rental stuff that we already paid for, in an agreement they installed it. They said they're right to do the fees, you know what I said to them? I said, we're gonna have a full fee of $1 million a year to the city of Portsmouth. His face turned blistering red. And Teddy said, that's enough. I said, okay.
But I know that we paved Fox Point.
Yeah.
But I think any further paving on Fox Point we ought to put on hold until after we hear.
We'll take
And
it.
I would say in the spring,
Absolutely.
they're gonna come to us and say, okay, now we're ready to do Fox Point
We did
Road.
the same thing over here because they were bringing the dirt back and forth. That's why we didn't do it.
And this fall, you know, they're talking about putting in, like a PVC pipe, but it's gonna have concrete collars. So either, I don't think the pipes are gonna weigh all that much, but there's gonna be heavy trucking coming into town. I don't think they're gonna pour these concrete collars on site, I think they're gonna truck them in. So we're gonna have a lot of heavy trucks coming in.
We're gonna bond them.
Well, I asked Martha to look into what we signed, giving them permission to use the point, the field at the point. But, we really need to look at, you know, where are they coming into town? Are we gonna approve them coming into town with those heavy trucks? And what our road looks like now,
Yep.
because, you know, and we all are well aware, we took it in the shorts from Eversource on what our roads look like.
Lesson
and what-
learned. Lesson learned.
Exactly, and that's why I'm bringing it up, that
Good.
when Portsmouth Water comes in this fall, whoever their contractor is, we need to look at how heavy those trucks are and what our roads look like now. And maybe you're right, Mike, maybe we do need to make Portsmouth Water bonded for the springtime when we know we're gonna have to
We
fix
did
our
that with
roads.
Eversource, didn't we?
Yep.
And I thought it was a smart move by the chairman of the planning board to do that. He was right on the ball with that one.
Well,
Yeah, we only got 50,000 out of them.
Well, that was your recommendation. I wanted 3, but you were for 100, so we went, you know.
Oh, we can spend 100 to get 50.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, good suggestions. Let's go back to the approval of the minutes of August 19th, 23rd, and April
So
7th.
moved.
Second, discussion, all in favor?
aye.
Manifest
Don't have to read it.
15,009.
Excuse me.
Dennis asked me to read everything, so I can understand.
Read them. Absolutely.
$15,955.36 dated 9/9/21, $23,000 dated 9/16, and $92,181.49 dated September 16th. Motion,
Motion approved.
second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that's it, right?
That is it.
Motion to adjourn,
6:10.
6:10.
Motion adjourned, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dennis, thank you for being a
Yeah.
spectator.
You know what? I like torturing myself. This is one of the best ones I can find.
Better than reruns on TV.